We'll just give ourselves a chance to settle in here. Just arrive in the space. However you are arriving this morning, allowing yourself to settle in, to give yourself this time. Do not have to do, do not have to think. Just feel where your body is held by the surfaces beneath you. Feel the breath expanding in the belly. Unravel any parts of the body where you notice you're tense or bracing. Taking a moment also to acknowledge the space that we're all sharing here. Even though it's a virtual space. Still sitting together, honoring the connection that we share here. The energy that we share. The experiences that we share. Wherever we are, however we're feeling in this moment. We are connected here. Hmm. So let yourself luxuriate. That feels possible in the stillness. Or if you find yourself wanting to stretch out, roll shoulders, wrists, expel some built up energy. Your mics are off. So let yourself take whatever expression you might want as we rejoin, reconnect to your space around you. And welcome back as we land here. So, again, feel free to share in the chat throughout if you want. Feel free to raise your hand if you want to share anything. If you read my email newsletters that Emily sends out, no worries if you don't. But if you do, you may have noticed that the last couple ones have been circling a similar theme of moving through the volatility of this journey that we are all on, of making progress, of feeling like we're sliding back, hopefulness, of hopelessness, this roller coaster that we are all familiar with. And sometimes the transitions between these states might be smoother, perhaps they won't be as dramatic. Sometimes those transitions might be quite intense, feel much more extreme. I talk a lot, or I use the metaphor a lot of expansion and contraction to refer to moving through these different states, the expansion, these phases where we feel more open, there's more potential, we feel more hope. We might feel physically better. Our awareness might just feel more light, connected, open. And then these phases of contraction, where our symptoms might be worse, our perception, our mood, our emotions, our thoughts, everything feeling much tighter. And we're kind of always moving through this expansion, contraction, and toward the beginning of our journey, it might be much more dramatic. There might not be much expansion, there might be much more intense contraction. And those expansions can be very encouraging, and the contractions can feel quite discouraging. They can feel even more discouraging when we have a little momentum, when we are feeling a little better, when not every moment is misery. Somehow coming back to that can feel even worse. And it's a struggle, I think, for most of us to contend with the dips. It's certainly a struggle for every client I've ever worked with, for myself. In those dips, symptoms are worse. Again, thoughts more negative. There's this just everything is kind of lower vibrational, heavier, stickier. It's like we're kind of in the murkier end of the water. Just like brown, mucky bog water where everything is just. And naturally, in these lower vibrational phases, everything just feels harder or more hopeless. Oftentimes, our minds are a lot more active, our thoughts a lot more negative, a lot more convincing. And that's not always as simple as saying, this is what's up right now. I'm in this period, I'm in this phase. I'd just leave it as it is. Because the narratives I come up with it become so convincing. I'm never going to get out of this. I'm broken. I'm worthless. I can't deal with this anymore. Why is this happening? And this is part of the cycle. It sucks. It sucks. No one wants to hear that. No one wants to hear that this is natural, that healing is not a linear process, right? And we probably hear that a lot. I can say that. Maybe your physical therapist says that, or a doctor says that, or other resources, people that you follow on social media remind you that it's not a linear process. And maybe we intellectually understand that and recognize that. But when we're in those phases of the cycle that show us that it's true, it's not linear. Oh, it sucks, doesn't it? It's really hard. It's a lot harder to trust that it's true that will come out of it. It's a lot harder to just be with the reality that I'm in a dip. I'm in the murkier end of the water right now. And just yesterday, a client said to me he had had a couple of great days in a row. His symptoms had really, really decreased. He was out, he went to a busy mall, he drove himself, he was feeling fantastic, hopeful. He was like starting to plan, okay, let me reactivate my membership at this sports club. Let me think about all these things I'm going to be doing. And then he had several days in a row of feeling quite bad. All right, it's a big crash. High, high, low, low. And in our conversation, he had quite an urgency about him, right? An urgency. How do I get back to that upward trajectory? Of course, naturally, we don't want to hang out in the place where we're feeling bad. And of course, we do the things that we can to support ourselves, what we know is helpful, whether that's medical, if we have medical protocols, medications, if there are supplements, if it's whatever ways we care for our body, rest. And it's also something that we don't often have a ton of control over either. We can't totally control what is going on. And so we do kind of have to sit in it. It sucks. I hate it. Right? I can be talking about this well and good, still knowing that when I'm in it myself, I'm hating every second of it. I might be losing access to some truth that I know about the nature of the up and down, the roller coaster. And so this client of mine, right, it was just in the span of a week. Real high highs, really big dip. And his reaction was very much, I have to get out of this. What do I do? Tell me. Let me try to parse it out. Okay, I'm experiencing this symptom. What caused it? How do I avoid it? How do I control this? What do I do? And it's like, there's the game. There's the game that we start playing, where it's kind of like we're a spy in a movie who's like doing backflips and slithering on the ground to avoid the lasers that will trip the alarm. It's like doing gymnastics and bending over backwards to avoid, to escape the murkiness. And I don't think anyone quite likes hearing this. And nothing that I say is meant to be discouraging or like tough love. But it's true. We cannot control that we feel bad sometimes, or perhaps a lot of the time. If we could, I don't think any of you would be here. sitting here with me today because you'd probably feel good most of the time. So there's, when we're in the murky end of the water, there's it's painful and there's a real suffering that happens when we are kicking and screaming to get out of it. What do I do? I can't. This sucks. I did something wrong. I blame myself. This feels awful. There's a real suffering when we have tolerance for only a very small kind of band of experiences. And none of this is to minimize the truly devastating and painful experiences that I'm sure we have all shared, that we continue to move through truly, truly debilitating symptoms. None of this is meant to minimize how painful that is. Um, but there really is so much hurt on top of the hurt that we're already feeling when we kick and scream against it all the time. I think there's this way that oftentimes we relate to this part of the cycle as having regressed. We've fallen back. There's a lot of ways that we people can kind of conceive of what this journey looks like. There can be this linear graph where maybe there's either up or down. I'm moving up, I'm down. If I'm in the murky end, I'm down. I've lost progress. I'm back to square one. Maybe it's more of a linear graph where we have time and health. And maybe we have our ups and then we go down and we go up and we go down like a roller coaster. And I'm worse off than I was before. And I tend to think that this two-dimensional model of progress and time, it does us a bit of a disservice, I think, because it is more nuanced. It is more complex to that than that. Sometimes people might even imagine like we're kind of just moving in a flat circle. I've started here. Ooh, I've made progress. Oh man, now I'm back to square one. I've made no progress. What is happening? What is happening in this journey? These cycles, these rhythms, expansions, contractions. I think this process is more like an upward spiral. With time, we are gaining understanding, we are gaining experience, while we may also be moving through these phases where we're feeling better, where we come back to this point where it feels like I've lost the progress. But are we really ever back at square one? If we're only referring purely to the way that we're physically feeling, then that can be mapped like a regression. But there is more. There is more going on than just what is the physical what's kind of going on physically with our symptoms. Because we're never really back to where we were the first time it happened. We have more experience. We have a different vantage point. Might be hard to access that. It might be subtle. It might not be totally clear yet. We might be gaining repetitive knowledge and the same data points over and over again that, okay, I learned for the 10th time that yes, if I go for this long of a drive, if I eat that thing, then yes, I will in fact feel bad afterward. It might be brand new knowledge. It might be the understanding of the nature of expansion, contraction, of something cyclical. But we're always operating from a new vantage point. We're still elevating. We still have more perspective, maybe a little bit more resilience, maybe a different tool in our toolbox to help us through these parts of the phase. So, these murky ends of the water, we can't always stop them, but we can get to know these rhythms a little bit more. What is happening? What is the quality of these phases of the cycle for you? I mean, even just starting with naming it. I'm in it. I'm in this. I'm in this crap right now. And when I'm in this murky water, hmm, this is what I know it kind of feels like physically, or what I'm sensing. Maybe it's increased dizziness. Maybe it's sensory sensitivity. Maybe there's just a general feeling of heaviness or tightness in the chest. What are the moods? Is it a feeling of being blue? Is it feeling more charged, more hyper aware? Is it what's happening in the mind? Do we know that our mind always goes to a certain place? All these things, of course, they don't feel good. But when this murkiness is afoot, we can have a little distance and perspective that yes, there is murkiness afoot. This is the energy. This is kind of the vibration of this phase. And there is heaviness. I am not heavy, but there is heaviness. There is murkiness here. I'm not maybe as surprised that this is where my mind is going. Maybe I'm not surprised that this is how my perception is changing. It still feels bad. There's also the tendency, I think, and as Sarah is asking about, how do you stop yourself from spiraling in the why when you're experiencing setbacks? Perhaps that's a quality you know about these phases. This is what the mind wants to do. Figure out, fix, investigate problems. How do I? How can I? When will I? These are these are kind of the mechanisms that happen. What is it like to even just acknowledge this is what happens rather than justifying or trying to answer the questions, not necessarily validating the questions, but just seeing and naming this is the quality of that murky place. And why? Why do we want to do this? I mean, what does asking those questions feel like? What does it feel like to ask those questions to yourself? What caused this? When will this stop? How do I fix this? If you actually let those questions kind of land and penetrate, does it feel good? Are they inspiring? Are they guiding you forward or upward? Are they guiding you downward? It's something to sit with. I can speak from my experience that oftentimes, or almost, yes, oftentimes asking the questions is actually, it's sucks. It's actually like driving me downward. It's driving me into this spiral because oftentimes there is no legitimate answer. There are always, of course, pragmatic ways that we can approach it. How can I support myself? What are the things? I'm always caveating that because, right, I never want to sound like one, I'm undermining the difficulty of the situation or that there are no practical things that we can do to support ourselves. We can, but oftentimes those questions I think are really coming from an unanswerable place. It's like, what's the savior here? How do I escape this? How do I not feel this? And that's kind of where we come back to how do we hang out a little bit more in the bog water without struggling against it as much? Right, it's that expansion of capacity, expanding our capacity to feel a wider range of uncomfortable experiences helps with a little more ease, a little more grace, a little less resistance, right? Our favorite word, resistance, which I know can be quite an aggravating word. It's aggravating to ourselves, it's aggravating to our systems, right? When we're fighting against everything all the time. And okay, if we're not fighting against, what does that mean? What does it mean to expand our capacity to tolerate the murkiness? Opening up, opening up to it a little bit more, not fighting it. Well, to not fight it, is that resigning? I think that's something that people often struggle with. That if I don't fight against what's happening either mentally in my thoughts, ruminating, thinking, trying to figure it out, or fight against it physically, maybe pushing myself further than I really have the capacity for. If I don't do that, maybe then it's done. I've given up. I won't ever get out of it. So there's like a vulnerability in hanging out in it more and saying, this is what's up. How? So how do we hang out in it a little bit more? Again, we come back to, can I even just name it? Because oftentimes we're just so identified with the feelings, identified with the thoughts, so reactive that we are completely in our minds about it. The narratives are a runaway train. Perhaps it calls for dropping more into the body. This is always the big paradigm shift and the struggle. But if I were to really support my body right now, what would I do? I might need my mind to rest. I might need a heavy blanket. I might need a feeling of being held or caressing. Where am I clenching? Where am I tightening? Where can I find a little surrender in my body? Surrendering to the whole thing of it all might be completely overwhelming, might be completely seem impossible. And arguably, it's not so much of an active choice, but a process we're kind of pulled into over time. But we can start with, where can my body surrender a little bit? I need to measure my day a little bit differently and understand that my output is going to be different. Maybe a win for today isn't feeling better or getting rid of a feeling, but maybe a win for today is just working on not adding more suffering on top of it. And if we have a little bit of distance, we might be able to inquire a little bit more about it. What are the conclusions that I am drawing while I am in this state? What am I telling myself is true? That I'll never get better? That my life is unfair? That I'm unproductive? That I have no value anymore? What am I telling myself is true? And I don't need to necessarily argue the validity of the statements. I don't need to decide whether that is true or not. but I can become aware of the conclusions that I'm drawing and just know, okay, yeah, these are the conclusions that emanate from me when I'm in this state. This is what happens. Maybe it becomes a little less surprising. Maybe we have space to negotiate with them, but maybe the space is to not negotiate at all, to see that this is happening, to start practicing giving our awareness more over to our bodies than to our minds and our thoughts. So, with that, we'll move we'll move into that practice. And I'd actually like to start with a simple demonstration. If anyone is willing to volunteer, there will be no questions, this is no hot seat, just it's still just a guided practice with a little participation. But is there anyone, just 2 minutes, anyone who wants to volunteer to demonstrate for the group? If not, well, let's see. Does anyone want to participate? No?
I'll do it.
Okay, thank you, Mimi. So we'll start with a practice called dropping anchor. Dropping anchor, you can imagine a ship out at sea. There might be storms, bad weather, can't control the weather, but can kind of help the ship from getting totally blown off course by dropping anchor. And so here the anchor is our awareness dropping from our mind to our body. And the weather, the storms can be anything that, starts to blow us off course. It might be sensations in the body, it might be thoughts and ruminations, it might be moods, emotions. So there's an acronym that we can use to move through this practice called ACE. ACE, acknowledge, connect, engage. So acknowledge is acknowledging kind of what we're noticing, what we're feeling. C is connecting to the body. And E is engaging the body more. And all of this is to bring our awareness into the present, into the body, out of the mind, out of that place where all the cacophony is often happening. So, me, we'll start with acknowledging and in a non-judgmental, kind of neutral way. Just if you can acknowledge with a couple statements. What are you experiencing right now? What are you noticing? Could be sensation in the body, could be a mood or a feeling. Could be neutral, could be uncomfortable, could be pleasant.
I'm acknowledging a lot of heat in the body related
Mm-hmm.
to angst.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're noticing heat. There's heat throughout the body. Okay. And so now, having acknowledged that, begin to connect to the body. Might be the feeling of your feet on the floor. Might be the feeling of where your body is held by the pillow, the couch cushion. And just this initial contact with the body, letting the awareness settle. And everyone else, you might be following along with in your own way. Now that you've made this initial connection with the body, we can start to engage a little more deeply in our senses.